We depart at 6:30 but hit terminal and turn back. The black Russian rye we left behind runs the risk of getting moldy. Anything Russian seems to be a liability these days. We depart at 6:48. Less than an hour later we reach the border. My father tells the customs officer we are heading to Memphis, to Graceland. Memphis is a suspiciously long way to go. Good barbecue down there, the customs officer says after grilling us for a satisfactory amount of time. He imparts this information with an air of confidence. He's a man of authority, official or otherwise. He knows product, he knows barbecue. Really? Oh yeah, he breathes, adjusting to his new civilian skin. He even grabs a hold of his belt, relieving his large stomach temporarily from the confines of his uniform, a colloquial reflex to some carnivorous memory in Memphis. He's just a patriotic ambassador now, an average American giving advice, mildly arrogant but only a shadow of the rattling interrogator. Just ask any of those old black fellas you see. Say, where's a good place to get barbecue? They'll know. He's a customs officer. He knows the local customs. We pull off the highway into a small amalgamation of vaguely industrial brick buildings, clustered around a preserved strip of heritage businesses bearing extravagant mid-century signs, delineating each door as the sole offering of a generic service. Cafe, tailor, theater, testaments to the limited size of the settlement. We opt for the cafe with the angular green cafe sign. This is the type of offering you crave in small-town America, greeted by a table of local men, regulars, clad in plaid or faded t-shirts with denim, old man baseball caps, slogans, meaningless or obsolete. They've been coming here for years, back when this main street was still the area's commercial center and not just a namesake for the complex of outlet stores and parking lots located a few miles down the highway. They can smell the rare outsiders now and are gracious enough to oblige, furnishing the small-town fantasy. Sit wherever you like, they chorus, echoing similar instructions posted at the entrance. The interior isn't glamorous or stereotypical, some retro diner. It's dull and unintentionally dated. Someone decided on an unfortunate green color scheme a fair few years back, and the lighting doesn't help. The bathroom contains a deep, meter-long metal trough for a urinal, crowned with a cylindrical bar that continuously emits a ragged line of irregular drips onto the resonant sheet metal, strewn with deteriorating deodorizing cakes below. It's the type of establishment that has been worn by the locals and preserved in its ongoing state of dilapidation to continue the legacy. The waitress has a soft American of some kind accent and a home-dyed head of black and red hair, the faux natural kind, not a rebellious attempt at the alternative. She is attentive, keeps the coffee cups full, and calls the female patrons honey, regardless of their age. No pet names for the men, though, beyond a first-name basis with the regulars. The rest of the time she spends behind the counter, showing one odd regular, who doesn't join the other local men congregated at the front, photos of her son in karate class. The food is good, despite the somewhat unappetizing appearance of the chef, who periodically sticks his head out from the kitchen. He's a hick, a real idiot. Thin face encircled by a dry hood of hair, gathered loosely at the base of his neck in invisible elastic, some half-hearted attempt at the sanitary. His image is capped off with a trucker hat and a toothpick between his teeth, one of those ones with the cellophane frill at the end, the type that is and inevitably will be shoved into a sandwich when the orders need to be filled quickly at lunchtime. The busboy looks to be from the same gene pool, though more boyishly clean-cut, with the exception of a large diamond stud in each ear. He's got a deviant smile and a flamboyance, probably excused by the locals as some residual fraternalism developed during gang membership of his youth, though regardless, I don't know how much the locals would care. With a town preserved like this, they must be left of right. We continue through a familiar landscape, evergreen forests, slow-moving rivers, and medium-sized mountains, only the highest of which display the existence of any other form of precipitation than that experienced somewhat too frequently, but harmlessly in the populated areas below. It's the safe pedestrian environment of the Pacific Northwest. The roads, however, are different from those at home. Oncoming traffic, separated and obscured from view. The other direction, the direction back, the direction home, deemed inconsequential. Focus is trained on the objective, the road ahead, and the four churning lanes of vehicles funneled at speed limits unheard of in Canada towards some unknown destination. "Well, aren't you two picture perfect?" she had yelled from across the street in an irritating accent. We ask her where a recommended cafe is. She's a new hippie type, she should know. But the dirty blonde dreadlocks and complimentary style is one of necessity. She's a traveler, taken to the road for some reason, chasing some dream, some lifestyle from an earlier era. And she's on her own, with the exception of that ugly black dog, the vicious type women and drug dealers buy for protection. Some company, she can barely handle him herself. He has his own objectives, his own destinations, struggling against his mistress and the frayed constraint around his neck. We probably looked like her type of people, we decide later. Picture perfect, a mirage of something familiar, something you reach out to after being alone, on the road for so long. Her last definite home, she recalls, was somewhere on the Olympic Peninsula. Doesn't seem far from here. We're in Ellensburg, Washington, a town the rest stop guidebook claims has the most cafes per capita. But she talks about the Olympic Peninsula as if it's some distant place. Exiting Ellensburg, we descend into this unknown territory. The trees give way, revealing the horizon for the first time. A distant interface, the edge of a rolling expanse of shallow grassy hills, more brown than green. We head with increasing interval between towards the next town, names seemingly born from this new landscape, this new world. Union Gap, Donald, Granger, Prosser. Cross a bridge over the border, formed at this point by the Columbia River, into Oregon, into Umatilla County, another fitting name, Western, Desolate. It's sometime afternoon. The psychological momentum that existed prior to Ellensburg has dissipated. Fewer landmarks, fewer points of reference, less tangible progress. We stop at a rest stop, toss a frisbee back and forth. Good way to stay sane during those long days of driving. A bit of exercise. The frisbee floats over my father's head, over the barbed fence, into a restricted area. Fuck. He weaves his way between the parallel barbed wires, gets snagged, caught. Fuck. I pry a barb from his back, from his forearm, from his head. He continues, retrieves the frisbee, throws it back. We return to the car. A patch of auburn emerges on the left side of my father's head. Red hair dye, the natural kind. He applies alcohol to his wounds. Good way to stay sane during those long days of driving. Who knows what untreated lacerations can lead to in Umatilla County. "Good thing you didn't get in too late," remarks the Latino woman in her Latino rhythm. We've arrived at our cheap motel in Baker City, a town seemingly known for the nice old hotel with its nice old architecture, the focal point of the main street. "Oh, is there a too late?" The woman seems concerned. "No, well, you've come a long way, probably tired, wouldn't want to be driving too late." She was right. It had been a long way. We were tired, but oblivious to how much we showed it. We agreed, should get some rest. "We want to get an early start tomorrow anyway. Is there a good place to get breakfast around here? You know, with bacon and eggs and hash browns?" "I don't know about hash browns. That's a Canadian thing. But there is a place." She begins to give directions. "There are hash browns in the States, too. We had some with our breakfast that morning. Probably hasn't been in the country very long. Anything unknown must be the invention of some foreign third party. Though I always thought hash browns were part of the American stereotype, the American dream. I would have thought they'd be a part of her American dream as well. We have a deal with the place. Just show this card." She scrawls her initials on the back of a business card, punctuating the scribble with the tap of a mechanized dated ink stamp. Very official. "And they will give you 15% off. But we also have a free continental breakfast. Starts at 6. Toast and fruit and cereal and stuff. You're welcome to that. Where are you two headed anyway?" We begin to tell her the itinerary, but don't make it that far. "Oh, I lived in Arizona," she cuts in. "My husband and I moved here from there not long ago." Not surprising. Arizona borders Mexico, doesn't it? the soft underbelly. If you haven't eaten yet, there's a good Mexican place across the street. It should still be open. There's also a pub in town. The Mexican place glows, fluorescent white. It's empty except for an overweight table, celebrating something. A birthday? No. The decor is celebrating around them. Brightly colored furniture adorned with molded dioramas. Sombrero-crowned men, prancing donkeys, and alabaster skeletons march across a terrain of arched-back chairs and benches, hang from the fluorescent chandeliers and leer from the corners, faces raggedly cracked in jubilant caricature. A static perpetual fiesta possesses the restaurant. It's too much. We move along. We view the town in the dark, the nice old architecture of the nice old hotel on the main street, lonesome buildings illuminated by eerie street lamps, a theater called the Atrium, emblazoned with pillars of red and green neon, and churches. More churches per capita than cafes in Ellensburg, we reminisce. We settle in the greasy, monochromatic pub on the main street, seeking plates of food with the homogeneous description, that familiar taste of home, reproduced with imperial consistency in duplicate pubs the world over. I wonder if the receptionist at the hotel visits the Mexican place, itching for that same dose of the familiar. I return to the lobby later, talk to the receptionist. We're having difficulty contacting home. Sometimes it's hard to reach Canada from Baker, the Latino explains. Something to do with the service provider. That's why she has a special long-distance plan, so she can call her family back home, back in Toronto, where she was born. She's a Canadian, but you can't get hash browns around here, not the ones of her childhood, not the ones that satisfy that craving for home. Must have been a special recipe, must be homesick. We decide to take advantage of the free continental breakfast in the morning. There's toast and fruit and cereal and stuff, and something to be desired. We retrieve our jar of peanut butter from the car and smuggle it into the lobby, but we leave the black Russian rye in the trunk. Anything Russian is a liability these days.